Who is ready to make some science?
Hey everybody, it's me, DeoGenZ, here with my OP Pokemon Trainer strategy. Today, we're going to be looking at Lurantis, the grass mantis Pokemon. It's kind of like the pink equivalent to Scyther, except it's not a bug. It's only a grass type, so don't make that mistake in metagame if you're thinking that it might be quad affected by fire. So on the stats side of things, we see that its defense and special defense are equally good and pretty decent when you consider things, not straight out wall status by any means, but the attack stat is where it shines truly, with a 105 base stat. When we go over to the ability side of things, we find Leaf Guard, which protects Lurantis from any status conditions in full sunlight, and Contrary, which turns any status-altering moves, that's stat-altering moves, so you know, like Sword Stance, into having an opposite effect. So if Lurantis did a Sword Stance while having a Contrary ability, it would have a very bad effect, lowering your physical attack stat rather than raising it. But I'm going to talk about that in the strategy section about how you may use Contrary to your advantage in double battle. And aside from Sunny Day, you may even think about needing a Trick Room. Look at that speed stat at 45. This is one of the slowest books we've looked at so far. So enough of us hinting at it, let's head out into the field and talk about how you raise a Lurantis. The main thing I wanted to keep in mind with this bulky striker in particular, since you could have multiple variants of bulkiness, is that I wanted it to be balanced. That's why defense and special defense effort values are slashed right down the middle once again with 126 and 126. Max out that physical attack stat though, because that is Lurantis' best attribute, and you want to be sure to maximize it as much as possible. You can depend on the nature adamant to do that to the fullest. Careful will help you with your special defense, and impish nature will help you with your physical defense. In terms of moveset, we see a really cool move, Solar Blade, which I'm not certain many Pokemon can learn. I haven't explored this move particularly yet, but it looks pretty much like a Solar Beam, except with a physical attribute to it, so those Pokemon like Lurantis that have a good physical attack stat will benefit from having a Solar Blade, whereas I would never recommend putting a Solar Beam on this Pokemon because its special attack is nothing to really be caring about. X-Scissor, Poison Jab, Brick Break, all to give you a good amount of hitting power and variance on the types that you can be super effective on. You could consider Petal Blizzard, since Solar Blade does take 2 moves to set up, I should add. That's why I mentioned it's very much like Solar Beam. If you want to use Solar Blade immediately, however, I would recommend attaching the Power Herb, which was what that red feather-looking item was in the previous screen, showing all the stats of Lurantis. And on the note of items, you need to be sure your moveset fits what item you attach, because that Assault Vest, which also was on that stats screen, will restrict you to only using offensive moves. So that Assault Vest will work for the regular moveset I provided here, but if you branch out into using Synthesis or any move that is not offensive, Assault Vest will prevent you from using that and then cripple a whole move slot while you're trying to battle in metagame. And before I leave you friends, I just want to mention the Contrary ability, which is hidden but available and can be used in single battles with a little bit of prediction if you know that your opponent has a Pokemon with Intimidate on it, because instead of lowering your attack, it will raise your attack when Lurantis encounters it. And in double battles, it's even more controllable. For example, if you have a member on your team that has Charm, and you use it on Lurantis, instead of lowering your attack 2 stages, it will raise it 2 stages, which is an incredible boost to get early in the game, where Lurantis doesn't even have to use a Sword Stance and it can continue focusing on being a purely offensive Pokemon. And in next week's episode, you'll want to stay tuned, because I have a particularly good Pokemon for monotype teams that has some great synergy and can take advantage of Lurantis' Contrary abilities, so you'll want to stay tuned for next week to see who that is. So with these combinations of stats, items, and movesets in mind, I hope that I've helped you in your 7th gen metagame, and let me know below if you're using any of the Pokemon from previous episodes. Have I helped you actually train a specific Pokemon in your team? I've been DeoGenZ, and if you enjoy this series, and you want to support me further, consider checking out Patreon, where I hand out shinies to anybody who's a patron and enter them into battle tournaments for future videos. See you in the future.